Oh, hello there. Today I would like to be discussing one of my absolute favorite black metal bands of all time. One of the finest exports from Finland, which is, I feel like, is the forgotten sibling of the Nordic countries. Everyone's so obsessed with Norway, and obviously the Swedish bands are very famous. You can't skip out on Finland. Finland fucking rules. And like any fan of any band, I think they're very underrated. So basically I'm just going to be doing a video talking about their discography. Not every single thing, most things. Talk a little bit about the history of the band. So alright, let's get into it. The early 2000s was a dark age for music. Creed were topping the charts. Mariah Carey released her Glitter album, which was terrible. Even the Norwegian black metal bands were starting to slip. Satyricon decided to release only shitty albums at the turn of the millennium. Gollum King turned Gorgoroth into Norse core. Mayhem had their weird-ass Grand Declaration of War album. And even Immortal had a rare fumble with Damned in Black. However, in Finland, in the early 2000s, and I would even argue, continuing to this day, Finnish black metal carried the torch of the spirit of black metal. I think the Norwegian bands kind of got caught up in, their minor fame, and instead of focusing purely on the music, they started to consider things like, how are we being perceived by the media? How are we being perceived by the scene at large? How are we being seen by the critics? I don't know. Basically, I'm just trying to say they took their eye off the 8 ball. But the Finnish bands, like how their Norwegian counterparts were in the early 90s, were still in the hungry artist with something to prove mode. And they were solely focused on creating black metal majesty. And Behexen kicked their career off with a bang, with 2000's Rituale Satanum, and right away, Behexen would show off their ability to create these awesome atmospheres with their riffs and their songwriting. And for the record, when I say atmosphere, I don't mean in like the Agalok or Death Heaven way, where it's like, some repetitive riff with a shit ton of reverbs played over and over for 10 minutes, whatever. Just, it is somewhat hard for me to properly articulate, but just Behexen creates this atmosphere with these evil and mystical sounding riffs. Best songs on the album are Night of the Blasphemy, the 2nd track, and Baphomet's Call, which I don't remember. I think that's like the 6th track. 7th track. They just have this awesome blend of power chords and evil atmosphere. Torog just sounds like a friggin' madman the whole time. And just overall, just the whole band was on form. This is just a good band playing well. Overall, great album. 8.5 out of 10. Fast forward to 2004, which would be a fantastic year for Behexen. Shoutrag of Sargeist and Horna fame. He's the guitar player and I believe the principal songwriter for both bands. He joined the band on bass. I think it's funny that Shoutrag has been involved in all 3 of the unholy trinity bands of Finland. Just embraced the will to power, became the Ubermensch, and single-handedly willed the entire nation of Finland to be one of the finest exporters of black metal for the past 20 years, and like I said, I would still argue to this day. In my opinion, this is Behexen's best album. Forget a sophomore slump. We got a sophomore superlative. And to be honest with you, this album was kind of a grower on me. When I first heard it, I was like, it's pretty decent, whatever, But as I listened to it more and more, I started to get into it more and more, just get it more. And I think I may not have liked it as much because, in my opinion, the best of the best songs don't really come until tracks 4, 5, and 6. Obviously, the title track, intro track, opening track by the Blessing of Satan, pretty good song. You know, good song. Fist of the Satanist, decent. How do you say the third one? Rituale Satanum, Behexen, Rituale. I'm not gonna apologize for not being able to pronounce that. Finnish people, you gotta fix your language. Why is your language like this? You know, that song is decent too. But I mean, then track 4, Celebrations of Christ's Fall, kick ass. Probably, I don't know. One of my favorite Behexen songs of all time, black metal baptism, which actually does something kind of progressive. It uses alternating odd time signatures in the intro. You know, and then after that cool intro, which, you know, I like a little bit of progressive music. You see the Opeth thing back there. Just goes to just this insanely heavy, cacophonous thing. Just do that for 30 seconds, and then there's like a part like bam, bum, bum, bam. And they just fucking do it again. And I remember hearing that and thinking, how can you be that fucking cool? How can you be so fucking cool you just throw the bum, bum, bam? You know? It's like, I don't know. Those are like kind of just, you know, the kind of the little things that make Behexen special. Then the song kind of goes into a riff, kind of like Freezing Moon, where it's like the bum, 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 bum. You know, obviously the riff is a little different. But, you know, slow tempo, and then just this crazy ass lead part, just going crazy, whammy bomb, shredding. Incredible. So Watchers of My Black Temple is super doomy. First time I heard it, I'm not a huge fan of doom metal. I was like, what the fuck, this shit sucks. But then I kept listening to it. I kept coming back to it. And, you know, when Torog's vocals come in there, it's fucking absolutely wretched and heinous. Say he's a disciple of the heinous path. But, you know, by far the best part of the song is when those, echoing choir vocals come in over the very like laid back guitar riff. It sounds apt to me. I hear it. I'm in heaven. It's ethereal. It's beautiful. I don't have the words to properly articulate. It's just one of those things you have to use your ears. I believe the philosopher Wittgenstein said, what cannot be passed over in words must be something about silence. I don't think I'm using that quote correctly, but I'm trying my best. But like I said, overall, this is my favorite Behexen album. I would give it probably about a 9.5 out of 10. You know, like I said, tracks 2 and 3 are kind of decent, so that's the only reason I'm not, I'm kind of knocking it down. But I wouldn't say necessarily that it, even though it's my favorite Behexen album, what we're about to talk about next is my favorite Behexen release. So like I said earlier, 2004 would be a great year for Behexen. You have Shatrail joining. They released their best album, but they weren't even done. Behexen in 2004 is probably the best black metal band the world has ever known. It's like friggin' LeBron James versus the Warriors when he was down 3-1. Just the greatest, most superhuman effort by what are allegedly mortal men. So Behexen would end up doing a split album with Horna, with Horna contributing 4 songs and Behexen contributing 3. And I'll be honest with you, Those 3 Behexen songs wipe the floor with the Horna songs. Basically, I think of this release as a Behexen EP with a free Horna EP. And I like Horna. I think Horna's a good band. I don't think they're as good as Behexen or Sargeist or whatever, but they're still a good band. I'm not trying to talk shit. That's more so just to say Behexen smash it out of the fucking park with this split. So Behexen start off the split with Ritual of Flesh and Blood, which again just has those awesome, amazing, atmospheric riffs, which again, I do not have the words to describe, but you just, at least for me, I hear it and I'm like, damn, that's cool. That's just very fucking cool sound. That just sounds super sick. Beyond the Shadow of My Lord rules, and then you have the amazing, the chuggy, the groovy riffs of A Distant Call from Darkness. So yeah, despite only having 3 songs on it, I would say A Ritual of Flesh and Blood and A Distant Call from Darkness, those two might be in my top 5 Behexen songs ever. Easily in the top 10. Easily in the top 10. So yeah, despite the fact it only has 3 songs, those 3 songs rule. They are friggin' amazing. I don't know if these were B-sides, because if these 3 songs were also on By the Blessing of Satan, this album would be a 10 out of 10. That whole album would be, I'd say, fuck it, it's a 10 out of 10. And I'd say these 3 songs, their side of the split, Behexen side, 10 out of 10. Just perfect. So from this point on, I wouldn't say that Behexen starts to suck, but they definitely don't quite reach the heights that they had previously. It's kind of like, instead of these albums being like 9s out of 10s, on average, now they kind of start to become 7.5 out of 10. Now, I don't have any insider knowledge. I'm just kind of speculating on limited information, but maybe it had something to do with Lunatic and Veilroth, who played bass and guitar respectively on the previous 2 albums. They left the band in 2004. Like I said, I don't know. Maybe they didn't even contribute anything to the songwriting process. They could have been glorified session guys for all I know. I'm not saying that is the case. I'm not saying that isn't. But there is that correlation that they left. The band doesn't get as good. Obviously, correlation is not equal causation, all that jazz, but figured it bear a cursory mention regardless. So, in keeping their tradition of releasing albums 4 years apart, in 2008, Behexen released My Soul for His Glory. And the album opens up with Let the Horror and Chaos Come, which has this kind of like Gregorian chant, like church music, kind of, I don't know, something like that. Kind of sounds like that. And I'll be honest, most of the time I don't really like album intros like that. I kind of would rather you just, get to the point, cut to the chase. But I actually kind of like that intro. I actually listen to it all the way through. I don't just skip it. And then, once the intro is over, just super sick, pummeling, chugging, Behexen power chord riffs. After that is Born in the Serpent Abyss, which I'll be honest, when I was first listening to that song and I heard the first minute and a half or whatever, I was kind of like, but then it just gets to this, it has this doomy like midsection. Oh yeah, that's the spice right there. That's the spice right there. Another thing that makes Behexen special is that, in the title track, the album opener, Watchers of My Black Temple, and on some later releases, they kind of have these, like choir, like I said, Gregorian chant type, I don't know, passages in the music and stuff. Not where it's like pure just Gregorian chant, but you got the guitar and the drums and the bass, everyone's going, and then you have it over top. And, it really does add a nice, evil, satanic, ritualistic atmosphere to the album. So overall, I'd give this album about a 7.5 to 8 out of 10, which I believe on Metal Archives, this album is Behexen's lowest rated release. I think it's definitely the lowest rated album release. Fuck the Metal Archives. The people who made those reviews are posers who listen to Death Heaven. Metal Archives would say this is the worst album. Like I said, I disagree. Definitely not the best. Definitely not the worst either. In 2009, the world economy was in turmoil, following the storied collapse of Bear Stearns, the Lehman Brothers, and the unprecedented collapse in the U.S. housing market, not to mention the Greek debt crisis going on over in Europe. The world economy was in the shitter. Some people thought we might be going back to the Stone Age. So in an effort to jumpstart the world economy, Behexen decided to release a EP in the format of 3 7-inch vinyl discs, limited to 666 copies. And it says it's an EP, but it's 6 songs, 31 minutes. It's kind of long enough to be an album. It's officially called an EP, so I refer to it as an EP, but, it basically is kind of like an album. And it is known as From the Devil's Chalice. And straight away, first thing I gotta say with the album is that the production is sus. I know complaining about production in black metal makes me a poser who listens to Death Heaven and, Suicide Silence and Pierce the Veil and all that. But in my opinion, there is good, bad production, and there is bad production. Like By the Blessing of Satan. But technically speaking, the production on there, or the sound quality, rather, whatever you want to call it, is not very good. But I would say the album sounds great. Like the drums, the bass, the guitar, the vocals, the whole band. The album sounds amazing. And I think that production, that kind of bad production, does help add to the atmosphere of the previous album. And again, I'm not an audiophile, all right? I'm not that kind of guy. I could give a fuck less. But there's just this very crunchy kind of clipping or whatever. I don't know what the term is. That's just on every song, and I don't know if that happened while they were transferring, the music files from the vinyl format to the CD, and something got wrong in the mix. Maybe they just heard all that shit while they were producing the album. They're like, yeah, it sounds dope as fuck. Leave that crunchy, clipping shit in there. I have no idea. But it doesn't definitely does not ruin the album. In my opinion, does make you not want to come back to it as much, also in my opinion. As one reviewer on Metal Archives put it, this album is flawed brilliance. So the album opener, Invocation of Zabalus, is awesome. It kind of has those choir-type vocals that I mentioned some of those other Behexen songs that I like have. And then, again, just the atmospheric riffs galore on Void and Holy Foul. Overall, I'd say this album is a solid release. I would give it kind of an 8 out of 10, but because the production is so sus and it kind of bothers me a little bit, I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10, but still, legit. 2012's Nightside Emanations. I'll bring it a little closer to the camera so you can see her boobs. This album is the start of where Torog does more of a low-pitched kind of death metal growl for his vocals, but the music is still very much Behexen and is still very much black metal. If black and death metal is death metal with black metal sprinkles, then I guess you would call this deafened black metal, because it's black metal with some death metal sprinkles. And mostly those death metal sprinkles are kind of in the form of Torog's vocals. But, you know, obviously the genres have in common blast beats, you know, picking fat, tremolo picking, shit like that. Now, admittedly, in my opinion, this is the weakest Behexen release. Although it's still pretty decent, it's still pretty good. I wouldn't say it's a bad album at all. Standout track for me, absolutely, is Circle Me. It's a groovy, doomy, headbang-inducing song that rules. Awaken Tiamat is kind of like the dollar store version of Circle Me. I mean, it's a little bit different, but it's kind of got the same vibe going on, you know, but still, a Dollar Tree version of Circle Me is still pretty good. Long story short, I would say a lot of kind of mid songs, a few good ones, and one fucking banger. So overall, 7 out of 10. So in 2015, after being with the band since 2004, Shout Tribe leaves Behexen. Hoth Torog also leaves Sargeist at around the same time. First saw that in the lineup changes, I kind of thought that maybe perhaps there was a schism happening between the two, given that they each left each other's bands, and Hoth was kind of going into this, you know, more low-pitched kind of growl thing. But as it turns out, there was no schism like I thought there would be. Shout Tribe did an interview, and the interviewer asked him about that, and he said, you know, given the fact that, you know, we all work jobs, we all have spouses and children, fitting in the band along with that, there's just not enough time in the day, really. So yeah, I thought maybe there was an artistic schism there, but no, it just turns out they just didn't have the time. So right on cue, 4 years after the last one, new one comes out. Once again, Torog has those kind of low-pitched vocals, and I really like the production on this album. You know, it sounds kind of, for me, it kind of almost sounds like the band is in a cave, which goes well with the album art. And overall, I would say it's an improvement on Nightside Emanations. Best song on the album for me is Umbra. I don't know how to pronounce it. And you've got some other cool songs in here, like Cave of Dark Dreams, you know, Wand of Shadows kind of sounds like By the Blessing of Satan. But hey, if you're going to plagiarize riffs, you know, best practice to probably steal your own ideas instead of someone else's. I'm looking at you, Jimmy Page. And while I'm at it, fuck Eric Clapton. Eric Clapton sucks. But overall, you know, once again, comparing this to Nightside Emanations, this kind of new sound that Behexen is rolling with, I would say while these albums do have similar peaks, I think there's less valleys on Nightside Emanation, or on The Poisonous Path. Overall, 7.5 out of 10. And that is it, so far, for Behexen. They do have a split with Satanic Warmaster, but it's $70 for a CD. I like to own the physical media, so I know you can find it on YouTube, but, you know, I like to own my music and stuff, and if I end up really liking that CD, I'm going to coat myself in spending $70 on a CD, which I don't want to do. But yeah, another thing I guess I would like to say in these concluding remarks is that Behexen obviously did not release an album in 2020, and we all know what happened in 2020. So perhaps COVID disrupted Behexen from making an album. Maybe Behexen not making an album was the cause of the pandemic. I guess we'll never know.